I probably call it I think it devolved in many ways because people don't like face cancer basic questions like what is a woman? That's pretty stupid, right? That's actually really stupid.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden, like, I don't know.
But don't you think some would argue that, I mean, I know people hate to have, there's so much you just said that we have to unpack, but I'm going to just go back to this. Don't you think that there's people that would say that about us as black people? That there was a time where we weren't sitting at the same counters, we weren't using the same bathrooms,
No.
we weren't able to go in the same doors, we didn't have the same rights, we were seen as less than human. I mean, I think...
It's not about less than human, I just don't think they exist. Like,
you know what I'm saying, in terms of black people.
Well, you're talking about, right now you're conflating being black, which is like, obviously, you're born black. You know what I mean? That's not something that I have to basically try to convince you.
Correct.
That, like, no, this is real. This person, look at the color of the skin. It's like, yeah, obviously, we have different races. Very obvious this person is black. On the trans stuff, you're asking me to be crazy. You're asking me to look at a grown man.
Exactly.
And imagine that he's actually a woman. And that if he goes and gets work done, that he magically becomes a woman.
Yeah, and the issue is they were asking for a while, but then they started to tell you that this is what you have to do. And I think most people were cool with it when it was just like, you know, I want to be seen as a blah, blah, blah. I think a lot of people actually, and me personally, I don't think that it's okay, but I think a lot of people were okay with that. I think a lot of people were okay with lying to the person just to make them feel better. And that happened for a while until they got to the point where they tried to push it into schools and legislate it so that we were forced to call them these things that were obviously delusional. So Candace is right here. And usually people wait a little bit when they lose in the debate to bring up the black thing, but he started off right away with the, isn't it the same as being black? No, brother. No, it's not the same as being black.
It's insanity. And I definitely, let's not conflate it with being black. Otherwise,
Let's not do that.
Dolezal.
Period.
Would you defend it?
There's no defending crazy. That's crazy. But
why is that crazy?
Hold on. Because she was a white woman that said she was black.
Yeah, that's the man saying he's a woman.
But let's
Exactly.
I don't think that anybody grows up wanting to be discriminated against, wanting to have feelings or wanting to have identity where they know they're going to bring that type of adverse reaction. Would you think gay people grow up gay or are born gay, or that's an evolution?
Genuinely, I just am trying to get you.
Well, it just depends. Regardless of if you want to make that argument of if it's born or if it's something that happens later on in life that comes from certain environmental issues, like, you know, being assaulted or something at a young age. Regardless of what argument you want to make, the data shows if a kid is growing up in a same-sex household, he's more likely to be same-sex. So the argument that is just born that way, we know to some degree is 100% not true. Right? I'm not saying that's for everybody, but we know if kids can be more likely to be LGBTQ because they're raised by LGBTQ parents, there is some level of influence that goes on that obviously contributes.
Relax.
But not acknowledge if Rachel Dolezal.
Correct.
She's transracial. So give her respect. Put respect in her name.
Explain to me how.
Because on the inside she felt black. She was dressing like she was black.
Get him, Candace.
Her skin darker like she was black. She was standing for the black cause. She was working for the NAACP.
Yeah.
It just happened to be that she was, you know, born a white girl with blonde hair and freckles. And it only became problematic when somebody exposed it and people said, no, you can't just be black. Why not? If you're gonna say that a man can just be a woman, why can't Rachel Dolezal just be black? You guys
Right.
Because
Correct.
white.
Okay, because it's a man.
Correct.
Bingo. And to be honest, there's going to be more biological differences, just straight up like anatomy and everything involved. There's going to be more obvious difference between a man and a woman than there is a white person and a black person. So if you're upset that somebody was pretending to be black, why wouldn't you be also upset that somebody's pretending to be a woman? It is cultural appropriation, quite literally. I remember one time I had a guy on my track team. He was a gay dude. And he would always talk in this very feminine, high-pitched voice. And I caught him one time in the morning before practice at like 6 a.m. He said, "What's going on, bro?" I said, "Oh, so you just faking it?" "Yeah, brother, you're like, yeah, be yourself, man, because you're faking it." Yeah, so you put on the voice in order to perceive like a woman. But at the end of the day, like Candace is saying, you're not a woman. You're still a man. And the craziest part is most gay people don't have a problem with that. Most gay people, like studs, like women who dress like men and they like lesbians, they know that they're women. But there's just this small fraction of people that are very loud on social media that want us to gear our entire society to compensate for less than 1% of the population, and it just doesn't make sense. If you got one leg and you go to Foot Locker, you still got to buy 2 shoes, right? We're not going to change all of society because of a small demographic of people.
I don't agree, and this is not a matter of right or wrong.
But it is.
Yes, it is.
Let me tell you, two truths, one thing can be true, right? Two things can be true. You can put a lipstick on a pig and it can still be a pig. You can call it whatever you want.
Yeah.
You can call it bacon. You can call it a side meal. It's still a pig. So
Right.
and their sexual orientation is not based on their body part.
Okay, so why isn't Rachel Dolezal black?
Because she's a white woman.
Okay, because it's a male or it's a female. That's it. And no matter how many
Correct.
procedures Rachel Dolezal gets, or how much makeup she pounds on her face, or
Yep.
how much she kinks her hair, no matter what, okay, even if she presents and she fully looks like she's a black woman,
Even if she gets the Kim Kardashian
even if
BBL.
she gets
Don't matter.
Kim Kardashian BBL, everything that she wants to get, she's still going to be and die a white woman.
Correct.
And that's the same for the transgendered people. You can get all the cosmetic procedures that you want. You can talk about your lived experience on a mic. You can stand up. At the end of the day, if you were born a man, you're dying a man.
Right.
And that's it. You got to do it
Correct.
in your own personal time. It's not up for me to help you work through those psychological issues. And that's just how it has to be right now.
But what about people who say that, let's conflate again, because you brought up Rachel Dolezal on race, that you as a black woman, no matter you having a white husband.
No, actually, he brought up race. That was one of the first arguments that he made. Isn't it the same as saying black people can't drink at the same water fountain? No, brother, it's not. It's not the same.
Having black and white kids, speaking all this rhetoric, you'll still, be equivalent to, what do they call us, monkeys, or an animal, or subhuman.
Boo.
Because we're who they think we are.
That's
Is
just
that
not
not a
true.
conflation?
That's not
Of course
actually
it's not true.
Incorrect.
But like, I'm not
Yeah, exactly.
calling-
And those people would also be wrong because we're not monkeys or animals or subhuman and all these things. We're human beings. So if those people were to make that judgment or say that, it would be wrong. Similar to how if somebody said that a man was a woman or a woman was a man, they would be wrong.
a person who's born a male saying that you're going to die a male is not the same as saying to a person who's a human, you're going to die a monkey, which is a different species.
But you think people have looked at us our whole lives as
That's just
as
name
human
calling.
beings?
That's silly. And I've not denigrated anybody and said that you're not a human. I'm just telling you because, unfortunately, a lot of people, when you get out in the world, are going to lie to you to make you feel good.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just not here to run the world like it's a kindergarten classroom. Like, I
Right.
don't really care about your feelings. These are the facts. Now, that doesn't mean that it warrants people to be mean to you,
Correct.
to call you names.
Correct.
I view it as a form of suffering, if I'm being honest with you. I couldn't imagine waking up every day and wanting to be something that I'm not. And now you've got people that are saying they're trans animals. People
Yeah.
that are saying that
What's
they're
a trans
that's
animal?
the thing. It's
That is not a
I
thing.
just
Yeah.
thank you.
Is trans
So,
animal
yes,
a
there are
thing?
people that
Yes.
think there's cats and dogs. It's a thing now, and
Yeah.
that's when it gets slippery. This is what happens when you
Candace, stop
when you
bringing-
give
stop
a
educating on
mouse
trans
a
animals.
cookie. Have you ever read that book? I got a lot of topics. When you give a mouse a cookie, they want the glass of milk.
Yeah, but see, nobody had a problem with people wanting to identify as whatever they wanted to identify with. The problem was when those people started to want to go into female prisons and they are wording women in the female prisons, or when those people want to go into the female bathroom where our daughters have to go. That's the biggest issue. So I don't have a problem. If you want to identify as a bird, you can identify as a bird. Just make sure you don't go and try to fly. You can identify as Batman. The problem comes when you're chasing down drug dealers for selling an eighth of weed trying to break their arm. That's where the problem comes in. So you can identify with what you want. I think most people had a lot more pushback when they started to try to also do the things that women were doing, competing in women's sports and all those different things. I think that's where the biggest issue. You can pretend to be whatever you like. Just once you start acting on that, that's when the problem is going to start happening.
Slippery slope, right? So you got to start and say, guess what, mouse? You're not getting the cookie. You're a man. Okay? That's it. And like a man, take it like a man. Okay? If you want to dress up like a woman, do whatever you want. At the end of the day, you're a man.
But I could understand if we were talking about Bruce Jenner or Caitlyn. That I understand applies only. And here's what
Right.
I will only agree. No.
Come
Bring
on.
yourself to be, and
No,
the king
no.
will tell you whether or not you're allowed to be.
No, because
Correct.
Caitlyn transitioned at some point. Caitlyn, go back to the trans animal thing. Is that really a
The
thing?
tea is piping hot.
Is trans animal really a thing?
Yes, it
and that's
is.
why
People are
you gotta-
insane.
You got to call the crazy. Okay, so if you start playing the crazy game, you never stop playing the crazy game. So I never started playing the crazy game, and people just gotta toughen up. And I feel for you. If you want to be a woman, you can't be a woman. I'm sitting here pregnant. You don't get the right to come out here and tell me
Right.
that you're a woman. This is my fourth kid. Okay, you don't even no, this is not even something that I'm going to debate right now. Okay, I'm just not going to debate it. You just don't get to just decide to put. And it's also, by the way, incredibly insulting, the idea that you get to be a woman just because you got some boobs and the lips.
Correct.
There's something very denigrating about that to women. It's basically saying anyone can be you. It's just a costume. Like being a woman is not a costume.
Yeah.
It's not a costume. It's just
well,
not.
First of all, some
Correct.
of you don't even do it well. I mean, I know a lot of women that don't have lips, that don't have ass, that can't have kids, that, you know, and those some that do have uteruses that probably shouldn't. But that's not because of my opinion as a man. It's my opinion
Because
as
that's not what
mothers.
that's not what makes a woman. That's the whole point. And it's
So
like,
what makes a woman
but you
a
think
woman?
that you have to have lips and boobs to be a woman?
No, but what makes a woman
There's
a
just
woman?
well, we could start at the very beginning. We can talk about why can the doctor tell you? Why do I know that I have a male in my stomach right now?
XX chromosomes, that makes you a woman. Having a different pelvic structure, which is literally one of the ways that archaeologists can date back and tell that some bones were a man or a woman, because of the pelvic structure for a woman's different. It's wider for childbirth, less dense bones. I mean, we could go down the list of everything that'll tell you what a woman is. But unfortunately, a lot of people have made it like it's a costume. A lot of guys who want to identify as women have made it a costume, and they believe if they wear a pink purse and put on a wig, that all of a sudden they are a woman. And like she's saying, it is a little bit disheartening, or it is kind of an attack on women to say that what a woman is just something as simple as wearing a wig. And that's not what being a woman is. So yeah, she's
Why are
making
they
a good
able
argument.
to do that?
Mm-hmm.
Right? We can go back to
But all
X and
women
Y.
can't have kids, though. There's a lot of women that are
It's not about that.
unable
No,
to
but
have
I'm just saying,
children.
like, why are they even able to give you a gender test to tell you what are they looking for? We are different chromosomally. We are just literally different biologically. We are two different species.
So do you
And
believe
so
that?
it's not a behavior. It's like this person, and even
Preach,
if somebody,
Candace.
if you say, okay, some women can't have children, that means something has gone wrong. In a perfect world, every woman has a womb and therefore can have a child. Things can go wrong, of
Right.
course. But it doesn't change the rules. It doesn't mean like suddenly, well, that means a man can be a woman. That's crazy.
Listen, the trans argument is a easy argument to have because there's so much there's so much around the trans movement. I mean, like, I know the comments, and I know a lot of people are going to agree with it. Either there's a lot of women, a lot of cis women.
They're going to be
Nope,
like,
those are regular women, not cis women. We're not playing the word games. That shit is out the window. We're done doing that. Those are regular women. And the issue is here, to be honest, with this conversation, a lot of times, I don't even focus on it because a lot of this issue has been brought on by women. So this is kind of a female fight. That's why I'm happy Candace Owens is the one talking out and drawing the lines for what is going to be tolerated and what isn't going to be tolerated, because it's up for the women to do that at this point. Guys have been trying to do that for the past 5 years. If women have voted and said, shut up, basically let these people into our spaces. And now that these guys are whooping women's ass in MMA fights, everybody's trying to act like it was the guy's fault that this is allowed. This was the women's fault. So this is really a female fight. Like, yeah, now y'all are fighting the patriarchy via grown men trying to be in y'all spaces because y'all allowed it to happen.
give Rachel Dolezal her flowers.
Do you like being called, a cis
No,
woman?
it's an insult. I'm just a woman. Why don't you call yourself something else? Because how about you call yourself not a woman? You know what I mean? The whole reason why you're calling yourself transgender is because you recognize that you're not what I am. So why are you calling yourself what I am ever? Like, it was recognized up until literally the last 2 years when I was in school. Again, I'm a dinosaur, so we only had LGB, and we also had the DSM-5. And in the diagnostic manual, it recognized that.
I remember this.
Yeah, it recognized it as a mental disorder. Obviously, your mental and your physical are out of order, so that makes sense. And that, by the way, people have tons of mental issues. I want to be clear. People have bipolar, schizophrenia. There's so many things that people have, and that's fine. But in no world, if I had someone who was schizophrenic or had a personality disorder who was trying to tell me that I had to address them like they were a dog, you know, would I get on 4 knees and go woof woof? Okay.
Exactly.
You having a mental issue does not get to become my mental issue. That's not a demand that I can meet.
Exactly.
So no.
I don't think a trans person has a mental issue.
I do, because
Definitely.
I learned it in school. And everyone agreed, because if your brain and your body are out of order, that's literally a mental disorder, and there's tons of them. Like I said.
But Candace, you know, there's people that into the conversation to get into who's right or wrong, because there's a lot to get into. But it's a matter of perception, a matter of experience. Like, I can't tell you what it's like to be a black woman. You can't tell me what it's like to be a black man. You can't tell me how it feels to be biracial. You can't tell me how it feels to be gay. I can't tell you how it feels to be straight. Because we all have our own lived experiences. I guess what I'm trying to unpack is why you believe the transsexuals experience is not one that deserves to be validated.
Yeah, and I'm similarly trying to unpack why you don't believe Rachel Dolezal's lived experience is one that should
No,
be.
I do. I understand, and that's the conflation where you're trying to unpack one topic by putting up
exactly
another.
The same.
But we can't ask why a rhinoceros isn't an elephant. We're talking about an elephant. And the elephant in the room is that you have a skewed perception, in my opinion, about a transsexual experience. And I'm simply asking, why do you feel like it doesn't deserve to be validated if that's how the person feels? Because you know what you guys do? And I'm going to say you guys that have these strong opinions.
Uh-oh, here it go.
No, these strong opinions. No, it's people that you represent because you have very strong opinions. And what happens when it comes to the LGBT community?
No, he's conflating opinions with facts. There's just biological fact, and she's stating biological fact. It's not an opinion.
You'll conflate pedophilia by using children and gay, which are two different things.
I'm not conflating here. Your argument is that if someone who is not clearly being born with a penis, for example, decides that in their lived experience, actually, no, they should have had a vagina, and so they're going to start living like they have a vagina and getting cosmetic procedures like they have a vagina, that suddenly I should respect that. I'm saying, okay, keep it consistent and say the exact same thing about Rachel Dolezal. You hesitate there. For some reason, you don't want to do that. And so...
I said she was crazy.
Exactly. So
yeah,
you
mental
have to
disorder.
keep it ideologically consistent. That's all I'm saying. But I'm saying to you, I'm consistent. Rachel is not a black woman. And a trans person can't just wake up one day and decide to be a woman. A man can't wake up one day and decide to be a woman because of lived experience.
Correct.
I'm sorry that I'm consistent, but you have to figure out why you're not.
No, Michael Jackson would be a better explanation.
Oh my God.
Oh my goodness.
Actually born your color
Oh
and
my
black,
God.
a little lighter than me. So that's different.
Michael Jackson
That's
is not
different.
a black man.
No,
Yes.
I agree with that. That's what I'm
What are
saying.
you
the
talking
difference,
about?
though, in terms of Rachel Dolezal, she's a white woman that decided that she was going to be black one
Comments are
day.
going to kill you
But
on this.
wait, no, they're not.
Yes,
no,
they
they're
are,
not.
because I'm making a lot of sense.
Let me
and
say
they're not.
this. I think people are going to watch this and go, I understand where she's coming from. And they're going to watch this and go, I understand where he's coming from, because they will. It's not an exchange of who's right or wrong.
Yeah.
Yes,
No,
it
there's
It is.
ideological consistency. So that's my thing. If you can't make it make ideological sense, it's because it doesn't make any sense, right?
And Candace here is 100% right. Candace here is 100% right. Everybody's going to look at this interview and see how irrational his opinion is. And to be honest, not to even make it too political, but this is the reason why the left lost. This was a big issue because they actively wanted us to play into delusion, and they weren't willing to admit that the biological realities. And so he's saying what Candace Owens is saying is an opinion, but really it's just a biological fact, but it's a biological fact that wasn't allowed to be talked about for a while. And so what happened is the left tried to control the language around all this stuff, and they tried to legislate people into forcing us to believe what they believe and say what they want us to say, or people would lose their jobs. And that happened for a while, but now that that's gone, they have no legs to stand on because they don't really have any good arguments to support this stuff because it's just not true. So yeah, and this was a big issue with the voting and stuff because this, like men, and I've said this multiple times, men will work with people that they don't even like, especially if it means the protection or provision of their family in order to make something happen, right? We're willing to work with people we don't even like. And I think this issue right here, a lot of people joined together that were men and women that have children and families, and they seen this stuff being pushed in schools, and they said absolutely not. And the LGBTQ community just tried to keep using shame, and they weren't willing to concede any ground. People didn't care when you just wanted to identify whatever you wanted to identify with. People actually went along with it. I don't think they should have, but people did. I don't think they should have because obviously it's landed us in the place that we landed, but they did. Until they started to become bigots themselves. Until they started to become the very thing that they said they didn't want people to do to them. Getting people fired from their jobs, people losing their livelihood, kids getting kicked out of school because they don't want to abide by these rules. All kinds of ridiculous stuff. So yeah, that's where the issue came into play, and I think people are going to roll this footage back, and they're going to agree with Candace Owens on this because she's 100% right. Let me know in the comments below if this video was a W or L, and give me the HBO special. That's Help Brother Out special. Hit the like and the subscribe button for more content. Till next time.